For this hour, we start with the breaking news coming in from Iran. According to Iran's local media, residential buildings in Tehran have been hit, with smoke being rising across the capital after recent strikes on civilian areas. The attacks come amid an ongoing wave of airstrikes that have also targeted government, military, and security sites in the city as the war escalates. No further details have been released on these strikes as of now. Now for this, we welcome Professor Mr. David K. Johnston. He's an author and journalist, joins us live from New York. Thank you very much, Mr. and Professor Johnston, for joining us again. Good to see you. Now, moving forward, as it continues for, 7 days now, and it seems to be continuing, what's your analysis on how long can this continue? Do you think that President Trump underestimated Iran's capacity or capability?
Well, it's not clear whether he did that. What we do know is that Trump said a few days ago, this war will be over in 4 weeks. Have you ever heard of a war that came with an expiration date, like it's a package in the grocery store?
No.
And so it depends on how they continue to prosecute this illegal, unconstitutional war. So far, it's all airstrikes, which is what I predicted on this show in the past would happen. But yesterday, Donald Trump made some remarks suggesting there might be a ground invasion. That would require a very large buildup of other forces that are not in the region. And it would probably also trigger a response from Congress about how much authority Trump has to pursue this, because a ground war in Iran, a country of 90 million plus people with 1 million people with military training, would not be a simple operation.
Right. I would like to also welcome Mr. Martin Reitz. He's an international affairs expert, joins us live from Ecuador. Thank you very much, Mr. Reitz, for staying with us. Now, what's your take building on my question and Mr. Johnston's answer?
So, well, I do agree in some extent to the professor's view. If we talk about international law, it's indeed an illegal war. But putting apart the legality of this war, we need also to put in consideration that this regime was absolutely dangerous for the West. Basically, this crazy Islamic terror government threatened several countries, such as Israel and the United States. They threatened to eliminate Israel from the Middle East. They absolutely violated international law and human rights. So I think the violation comes from both sides, but I think if we take in consideration the danger of this regime, it's absolutely important to override the power of this regime, its capabilities, and its military infrastructure, so they cannot continue to engage in terrorism in the Middle East and to support their proxies such as Hezbollah, Hamas, and so on.
Right. And building on that, just one more question, Mr. Johnston. How do you think proxies are being eyed or used, or yes, in this war?
If the United States decides it's going to engage in more than an air war, it's absolutely going to need to develop some other support. It's not clear if the Kurds are being aroused by the U.S. or are acting on their own. And let's keep in mind that all of the dictatorships in the Middle East support terrorist groups. Iran is unusual in that it supports Hezbollah and Hamas, but the others support many terrorist groups. The Saudis, for example, support almost 6 terrorist organizations. So where you would find allies for a larger ground war is completely unclear, although we know that the Saudis, the Bahrainis, and the Emiratis are deeply concerned about the presence of the Iranian regime They see it as a great threat to themselves, and so they might decide they were going to assist.
Thank you very much, Mr. Johnston and Mr. Ereitz, for sharing that insight with us. We have another breaking news coming in from Bahrain. Several explosions were heard in Bahrain's capital Manama as tensions in the Gulf continue to rise. According to reports, sirens were sounded in the city as Iran intensified its retaliation campaign. Bahrain's Interior Ministry has urged citizens and residents to stay calm and seek shelter in safe places. This comes as UK's Prime Minister Keir Starmer has offered additional defense support to Bahrain during a call with King Hamad bin Isa Al Khalifa. Prime Minister Starmer stated that 4 UK jets deployed to Qatar could be used to defend Bahrain from potential Iranian missile and drone attacks. Now we welcome back Mr. and Professor David K. Johnston. He's joining us live from New York. Thank you very much, Mr. Johnston, for staying with us. How do you see UK's move? Do you think UK is making up in a way for what US is not destroying, but what US is doing to the trust level which was earned or which seemed to be warming up from GCC countries, including Bahrain, towards Western nations?
Well, a couple of days ago, Keir Starmer, the British Prime Minister, issued a very legalistic sort of statement saying, you know, we don't have a dog in this fight. All we're doing are defensive actions, and we've allowed Americans to refuel some aircraft at one of our bases, but we're really not in this. And I said on your show at the time, I don't think that that's going to sell in Tehran. You're either in or out of this thing in the view of that regime. And bit by bit, the British are finding themselves drawn into this because they took that approach as opposed to the Scandinavian countries, France and Germany, that said, hands off, you're not landing our planes here, you're not staging on your bases in our countries. So bit by bit, I think we're going to see the British drawn into this, like it or not, from their perspective.
And how do you see the alignment between West towards this war right now?
Well, Donald Trump has spent the last year annoying, if not denigrating, America's closest allies. And so the idea that he could build some strong support for regime change with a ground assault in Tehran is a little hard to imagine. On the other hand, as your other guest quite rightly pointed out, this is a very dangerous regime. They want us to go live in the 9th century. And so it is possible that as a matter of convenience, holding their noses, the major European nations may decide at some point that they're going to join in. But if they do that, I think they should anticipate they would be involved in a very long and bloody war, because if there's one lesson we should have all learned, it's people will defend their homeland. Even if they don't like the government that's in charge, they will defend their homeland from outside invaders.
And you know how now if someone was to mediate, well, it might be too early to talk about this, but if someone was to mediate, who could that be or who would that be? And do you think United Nations or Board of Peace, do they have any say or any role to play in such case?
Well, the obvious first person to think about for a mediation role would be Foreign Minister Badar of Oman, who was the person conducting the indirect talks in Geneva a week ago. Trump's Board of Peace is a vanity project by Trump designed to enrich himself and to feed his ego. It's not a substantial organization, and the countries that have bought into it are not major players. The UN and the prospect perhaps of UN peacekeeping troops after a war would be a more logical possibility, but I would expect that Foreign Minister Badar would be the person first on the list to mediate any kind of talks. And remember, Donald Trump asserted yesterday that he is going to play a role in picking the next leader of Iran, if not actually doing it outright. I don't know how much more insulting one could be to a sovereign nation, even one you don't like. I mean, imagine if the Ayatollahs were to say, we're going to pick the next president of the United States.
Yes, thank you very much, Professor Johnston, for sharing that insight. Please do stay with us as we come back to you.